For 4,600 years, a colossal monument has stood in the desert, so perfect, so massive, that even today, we still don't fully understand how it was built. No machines, no cranes, no modern tools, just human hands. The question is how? Close your eyes for a moment and picture this. The scorching desert sun blazing above, waves of golden sand stretching endlessly around you, and in the middle of this vast emptiness, a structure so massive, so breathtaking, that it almost feels impossible that human hands could have built it. Towering before you stands the Great Pyramid of Giza, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one still standing today. Even after 4,600 years, this giant of stone has not lost its power to amaze. Think about this for a second. At a time when there were no cranes, no bulldozers, no trucks, and no modern tools, early humans somehow managed to construct a monument so precise and so durable that it has outlasted entire empires, kingdoms, and civilizations. Scientists, explorers, and even engineers of today still scratch their heads in disbelief. How could they possibly have done it? The numbers alone are enough to leave anyone speechless. The Great Pyramid is made of around 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing anywhere from 2 to 15 tons. Some stones are as heavy as an elephant. Now imagine lifting one block, not with a machine, not with a forklift, but with bare human strength and simple tools. Then imagine repeating that process more than 2 million times, stacking each block with perfect alignment. It's almost unimaginable, and yet it was done. But the mystery doesn't stop there. The pyramid was not just tall, it was the tallest human-made structure in the world for nearly 3,800 years. To put that in perspective, when the Great Pyramid was finished, humans had not yet discovered America, the Roman Empire didn't exist, and even paper hadn't been invented. And still, this monument stood taller than any building mankind would create for almost 4 millennia. Only in the 19th century, with the construction of the Eiffel Tower, was the pyramid finally surpassed. Even more mind-blowing is the precision with which it was built. The base of the pyramid forms a nearly perfect square, with each side measuring over 230 meters, and the difference in length between sides is less than a few centimeters. The pyramid is aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. In fact, the accuracy of its alignment is so precise that some scientists argue it could only have been achieved with astronomical knowledge and advanced surveying techniques. But how did people, living 4,600 years ago, acquire such knowledge? That question continues to puzzle researchers to this day. Over the centuries, countless theories have been suggested. Some say enormous ramps were built to drag the stones into place. Others believe they used levers, wooden sledges, and clever systems of counterweights. A few even suggest that water, poured on the sand, helped reduce friction, so workers could slide the stones more easily. And then, of course, there are the wild theories, the ones that claim aliens had a hand in the construction. While entertaining, archaeologists have found plenty of evidence that humans, through sheer determination, organization, and skill, were indeed the builders. But let's pause and think beyond the stones and the ramps. The Great Pyramid wasn't built overnight. It took decades of planning, thousands of workers, and a vision so powerful that it united an entire civilization. The pharaoh Khufu ordered its construction not just as a tomb, but as a statement of eternal power. To the people of Egypt, the pyramid was more than a pile of rocks. It was a stairway to the heavens, a bridge between earth and the gods, and a promise that their king would live forever. This is what makes the pyramid so mysterious and so extraordinary. It wasn't just an architectural achievement. It was a cultural, spiritual, and emotional achievement. Imagine the pride of the workers, standing at the base of the pyramid after years of grueling labor, knowing they had created something that would outlast their own lives, their children's lives, and even the rise and fall of countless civilizations. And here we are today, standing in the 21st century, still in awe. Despite satellites, drones, and advanced scanning technologies, the pyramid continues to guard its secrets. Every time archaeologists uncover a new chamber, passageway, or hidden void, more questions emerge. It's as if the pyramid is whispering across the ages. You may admire me, but you may never fully understand me. That's why the Great Pyramid of Giza remains one of humanity's greatest mysteries. It's not just about how it was built, it's about what it represents. Determination, faith, ingenuity, unity, the human will to achieve the impossible. And perhaps that's the real secret. Maybe the pyramid's message isn't hidden in stones or ramps, but in the story of people who dared to dream bigger than anyone else before them. So the next time you see a picture of the Great Pyramid, or if you're ever lucky enough to stand at its base, remember this. You're not just looking at a monument. You're looking at a time machine, a doorway into a world 4,600 years old, where humans achieved the impossible with nothing but their bare hands, their minds, and their unshakable belief in eternity. Travel with me 4,600 years back in time, to the land of Egypt. Picture the wide, glimmering Nile River flowing like a lifeline through the desert. Without this river, Egypt would have been nothing but dry sand and scorching heat. But with the Nile, Egypt became one of the most powerful and advanced civilizations of the ancient world. Every year, the river would flood, spreading nutrient-rich soil across its banks. This miracle of nature transformed the barren land into fertile fields where wheat, barley, flax, and vegetables grew in abundance. For most Egyptians, life revolved around farming. Farmers woke at sunrise and worked until the sun dipped below the horizon. They used simple tools made of wood and copper, guiding oxen to plow the soil, scattering seeds by hand, and carefully tending to crops. Their hard work didn't just feed their families. It also supported the massive workforce needed to build the pyramids. Because when you think about it, feeding thousands of laborers, engineers, stonecutters, and architects required an entire society working together. The farmers were the silent force that made the grand vision of the pyramids possible. But life in Egypt wasn't only about farming. The society was carefully organized, almost like a pyramid itself. At the very top stood the pharaoh, the supreme ruler. To the people, the pharaoh was more than just a king. He was believed to be a god on earth, a divine being chosen to maintain order and harmony, or what Egyptians called ma'at. Every decision he made carried spiritual importance. Serving the pharaoh wasn't just about loyalty to a ruler. It was considered service to the gods themselves. This deep belief gave ordinary Egyptians a sense of purpose, even in the toughest labor. Beneath the pharaoh were the nobles and priests. The priests held immense power, guiding spiritual life, performing rituals, and maintaining temples. Nobles and high officials helped manage land, collect taxes, and oversee projects. Next came the scribes, men trained to read and write, a rare skill in a world where most people couldn't. Scribes recorded harvests, kept track of workers, and documented everything from legal matters to religious texts. Without them, Egypt's massive projects, including the pyramids, could not have been organized. Below them were craftsmen and laborers. Skilled artisans worked with stone, wood, gold, and clay, creating everything from delicate jewelry to enormous statues. Their skills brought beauty and power to Egypt's temples and tombs. Ordinary laborers, on the other hand, formed the backbone of Egypt's workforce. They built roads, carried stones, and served in the pharaoh's army when needed. Farmers, after the harvest season, often joined pyramid construction as part of their duty to the pharaoh. And finally, at the bottom of society were servants and workers with the hardest lives. While Hollywood often portrays pyramids being built by slaves, historians now believe the majority of workers were not slaves, but ordinary Egyptians fulfilling a duty or earning wages. Archaeological evidence shows that pyramid workers lived in organized villages, were given food like bread, onions, and fish, and even received medical care. These were not broken, starving slaves. They were proud Egyptians who saw their work as part of something greater than themselves. Daily life in ancient Egypt also carried a rhythm of culture, religion, and tradition. Families lived in mud brick houses, simple yet practical for the hot desert climate. Meals were basic but filling, often including bread, beer, fish, and vegetables. For leisure, Egyptians enjoyed music, board games like senet, and storytelling. Children played with handmade toys, while adults often took part in festivals honoring the gods. Religion was everywhere, whether in small household shrines or in massive temple rituals. Egyptians believed their lives were connected to the gods, and death itself was only the beginning of another journey. This strong spiritual belief system deeply influenced their view of the pyramids. To them, building a pyramid wasn't just about creating a tomb. It was about preparing the pharaoh for eternal life with the gods. If the pharaoh reached the afterlife successfully, he would continue to protect Egypt and bless his people. In that way, every farmer harvesting wheat, every craftsman carving stone, and every laborer hauling blocks to the desert plateau was contributing not just to a king's tomb, but to the survival and prosperity of their entire civilization. Imagine being an Egyptian worker standing under the burning sun, dragging a massive stone toward the rising pyramid. Sweat drips down your face, your hands are calloused, and your body aches. But in your heart, you believe this effort is holy, that it connects you to something eternal. You aren't just building for today, you're building for forever. That powerful belief is what gave ancient Egyptians the strength to complete such monumental projects. So, life in ancient Egypt wasn't simple, but it was purposeful. Every layer of society, from pharaoh to farmer, played a role in shaping the kingdom. Together, they created not only food, temples, and art, but also one of history's greatest wonders, the pyramids. And while their daily lives might seem ordinary at first glance, plowing fields, baking bread, praying to the gods, each action was tied to a vision much larger than themselves.
This is why, even after 4,600 years, we still marvel at Egypt. It wasn't just the stone pyramids they left behind. It was the spirit of a people who believed their lives were part of something eternal, something written in the stars and carved into the sands of time. When most people imagine the construction of the pyramids, they picture thousands of slaves, whipped and chained, suffering under the desert sun. But here's the myth-busting truth. The pyramids were not built by slaves. Instead, they were built by one of the most organized, skilled, and determined workforces in human history. Archaeologists have uncovered fascinating evidence to prove this. Near the Great Pyramid of Giza, they discovered the remains of large workers' villages. These were not prison camps but thriving communities. The people who lived there were given shelter, food, and even medical treatment. Skeletons show healed injuries, proof that if a worker broke a bone, he wasn't abandoned, he was treated and allowed to recover. These discoveries completely changed how we view pyramid builders. They weren't slaves suffering in silence. They were respected laborers and skilled professionals, proud of their work. So, who exactly built the pyramids? The workforce was massive, with estimates ranging from 20,000 to 30,000 people. This wasn't just a random crowd of men. It was a carefully organized machine, divided into teams and groups, almost like a military operation. Each group had specific tasks. Some cut limestone blocks in nearby quarries, others transported them across the desert, while another team worked on fitting the stones together with unbelievable precision. Life in the workers' villages was surprisingly structured. Imagine rows of long, rectangular barracks where men slept side by side. Every morning, they woke to eat meals of bread, onions, garlic, and dried fish. And yes, beer was a daily part of their diet. In fact, beer was considered safer to drink than water, and it gave them energy to face the backbreaking labor ahead. Workers were well fed because the pharaoh and his officials knew a hungry, weak workforce would never be able to move 2-ton blocks. The organization of labor was incredible. Teams of 20 to 40 men hauled massive blocks using wooden sleds. Wetting the sand in front of the sleds reduced friction, making it easier to slide the stones forward. Other groups prepared ramps of mud brick and limestone chippings, while others guided ropes and levers to position the blocks. Every movement was carefully planned, every block precisely measured. One mistake could ruin the alignment of an entire pyramid face, so precision was everything. And don't forget, the pyramid wasn't just made of limestone. Some of the granite blocks used inside the pyramid came from Aswan, more than 800 kilometers away. Transporting such massive stones over such a distance required brilliant engineering. They floated the blocks on boats along the Nile, proving that ancient Egyptians were masters of both land and water logistics. But the workers were not only laborers. Many were skilled craftsmen, stone cutters, carpenters, metalworkers, and engineers. Stone cutters shaped the limestone with copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones. Carpenters built sledges and scaffolding. Rope makers created strong bindings to hold stones in place. Engineers oversaw measurements, ensuring every angle was exact. This wasn't random, sweaty labor. It was a carefully choreographed performance of human skill. Now, let's think about the human side of this workforce. Imagine more than 20,000 people living together for years, united by a single goal, to build a tomb for their god-king that would last forever. These workers weren't nameless, faceless laborers. They had families, friendships, rivalries, and pride in their craft. Archaeologists even found graffiti inside hidden chambers of the Great Pyramid, signatures of worker teams with names like the Friends of Khufu or the Drunkards of Menkaure. These markings show the workers had humor and identity. They wanted to be remembered as part of something historic. Working conditions were tough, no doubt. The desert sun was unforgiving, the stones were heavy, and injuries were common. But compared to slaves, pyramid workers had dignity. They were provided food, shelter, and a sense of purpose. Many were farmers who came to work on the pyramids during the flood season, when their fields were underwater and farming wasn't possible. For them, pyramid building wasn't just work, it was duty, service, and even an honor. And think about this. Every worker who hauled a block, every craftsman who carved a stone, knew they were contributing to something eternal. They weren't just building a tomb, they were building a symbol of immortality. The pyramid wasn't only for Pharaoh Khufu's afterlife. It was also a monument that said, "We, the people of Egypt, achieved the impossible." Even today, when we stand before the Great Pyramid, we're not just seeing stones stacked in the desert. We're seeing the fingerprints of tens of thousands of workers who dedicated years of their lives to a vision bigger than themselves. Their sweat, strength, and skill carved a legacy that still amazes the world. So, the next time someone says the pyramids were built by slaves, you'll know the truth. The real story is far more inspiring. Ordinary Egyptians, united by belief, duty, and pride, created one of the greatest wonders of the ancient world. They weren't forced by chains, they were driven by purpose. And that purpose lives on, carved into every block of stone that has stood for nearly 5,000 years. So how, exactly, did the ancient Egyptians lift those giant stones and stack them into a perfect pyramid? This is the question that has puzzled scientists, historians, and engineers for centuries. The truth is both fascinating and inspiring. The Egyptians used simple tools, clever techniques, and an incredible amount of human determination to achieve what looks almost impossible. The most widely accepted theory involves ramps. Archaeologists believe the workers built massive ramps made of mud brick and limestone chippings. Imagine a giant sloping road stretching alongside the pyramid or spiraling around it, allowing workers to drag the heavy stones upward as the structure grew taller. With each new layer of the pyramid, the ramp would be extended higher, giving workers access to the next level. But dragging stones weighing several tons across sand isn't easy. Here's where the Egyptians' brilliance shines. Ancient paintings discovered in tombs show workers pouring water onto the sand in front of the sleds carrying the stones. This clever trick reduced friction, making it far easier to slide the blocks forward. Modern experiments have proven this works. Pouring just the right amount of water on sand can cut the effort required to move heavy objects by nearly half. This means that with teamwork, ropes, and wooden sledges, the workers could drag stones that seemed far too heavy for human strength alone. Once the stones reached the pyramid site, precision became the next challenge. Every single block had to be cut and shaped with astonishing accuracy. Remember, there were millions of these stones, yet they fit together so perfectly that even today, you can barely slide a sheet of paper between them. How was this possible with no steel, no modern measuring instruments, and no electricity?
The answer lies in their use of simple but effective tools. Workers used copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones to cut the limestone. For granite, which was much harder, they used pounding stones to chip away slowly and methodically. Ropes and wooden levers helped move and position the blocks into place. And for measurements, they relied on simple tools like plumb bobs, levels, squares, and even the stars in the night sky to ensure accuracy. The Egyptians may not have had lasers, but they had intelligence, patience, and skill, and that was enough. Another fascinating theory suggests that instead of one massive ramp, the Egyptians may have built a spiral ramp around the outside of the pyramid. This would explain how they managed to transport blocks up to the higher levels without building a ramp that was longer than the pyramid itself. Some experts even believe internal ramps were used, hidden passageways inside the pyramid that allowed workers to pull stones upward from within. If true, this would be a remarkable example of engineering genius far ahead of its time. Of course, moving the stones was only part of the challenge. Positioning them with exact precision was just as important. Teams of workers carefully maneuvered each block into place, adjusting it until it sat perfectly aligned with the others. Imagine the patience required. Hundreds of men sweating under the desert sun, slowly easing a massive block into its final resting position, guided by ropes, levers, and sheer strength. Every stone had to be placed correctly, because one mistake could throw off the alignment of the entire structure. What makes all this even more astonishing is the scale of the project. The Great Pyramid originally stood over 146 meters tall, about the height of a 50-story building. Building something of that size today would require cranes, scaffolding, trucks, and computers. But the Egyptians accomplished it with nothing more than human hands, wooden sledges, ropes, and mud brick ramps. Their techniques may have been simple, but their organization and determination made them unstoppable. And here's something to think about. The pyramid's outer casing was once covered in smooth white limestone, polished to shine brilliantly in the sun. Imagine how it must have looked 4,600 years ago, gleaming like a jewel in the desert, its sides so smooth they reflected sunlight for miles. To build that kind of perfection required not just engineering skill but artistic vision. The real genius of the Egyptians wasn't in inventing machines, it was in using the tools they had to their fullest potential. They mastered physics without calling it physics, engineering without writing down equations, and teamwork without modern communication. They solved impossible problems with creativity, patience, and hard work. So, when you stand before the Great Pyramid today, remember that it wasn't aliens, magic, or lost technology that built it. It was ordinary human beings who found ingenious ways to overcome extraordinary challenges. They didn't just move stones, they moved mountains, one block at a time. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. You don't always need the most advanced tools to achieve greatness. Sometimes, the combination of determination, teamwork, and clever thinking is enough to create wonders that last forever. When the Great Pyramid of Giza was finally completed, it was more than just a pile of stones stacked in the desert. It was a statement loud, clear, and timeless. For over 3,800 years, it stood as the tallest man-made structure on Earth, towering above cities, empires, and civilizations that rose and fell around it. Think about that for a moment. Generations were born, lived, and died. Entire kingdoms disappeared into history, yet the Great Pyramid remained. No cathedral, no fortress, no monument surpassed it until the 19th century. For nearly 4 millennia, it was the undisputed champion of human achievement. But the pyramid was not only about height or size. To the ancient Egyptians, it was far more profound. This colossal structure was built as the eternal resting place of Pharaoh Khufu, a god-king who ruled Egypt during the Old Kingdom. Egyptians believed that death was not the end, but the beginning of a new journey into the afterlife. The pyramid was designed as a stairway to the heavens, guiding Khufu's soul to join the gods among the stars. The smooth, white limestone casing that once covered its sides shone so brightly in the sun that the pyramid looked like a radiant beacon, visible for miles across the desert, pointing the way to eternity. For the people of ancient Egypt, the pyramid symbolized hope and continuity. By ensuring their pharaoh's safe passage into the afterlife, they believed they were also securing blessings and protection for themselves. The construction of the pyramid wasn't just about honoring one man, it was about preserving the cosmic order, maintaining balance, and keeping the cycle of life connected to the divine. Every farmer, craftsman, and laborer who contributed saw themselves as part of something eternal, something far greater than their own lifetimes. Fast forward to today, and the legacy of the pyramids still resonates. For us, they are not just tombs. They are testaments to what humanity can achieve when creativity, unity, and determination come together. Without iron tools, without advanced machines, without modern mathematics, the Egyptians created something that continues to defy time. Their work reminds us that human potential knows no limits when guided by vision and perseverance. And yet, even after thousands of years of study, the pyramids remain shrouded in mystery. How did they achieve such perfect alignment with the stars? How did they move millions of stone blocks with such precision? Why were certain chambers built in hidden places still puzzling archaeologists today? Each time we learn something new, another question emerges. The pyramids seem to guard their secrets as carefully as they once guarded the pharaoh's treasures. But perhaps the real treasure of the pyramids isn't gold or jewels. It's the story they tell. A story of human ambition, cooperation, and resilience. A story of ordinary men and women who built something extraordinary, something that has lasted longer than any dynasty, religion, or empire. The true legacy of the pyramids is not just in their stones, it's in their message. We were here. We dared to dream the impossible, and we made it real. When you stand before the Great Pyramid today, you can feel that message in the air. You don't just see stone blocks. You see fingerprints of the past. You see the sweat of workers who toiled under the desert sun, the vision of architects who calculated each angle, and the faith of a people who believed they were building for eternity. The pyramid becomes more than a monument. It becomes a bridge across time, connecting us to a world that existed 4,600 years ago. And maybe that's why the pyramids continue to inspire millions of people every year. Tourists travel from across the globe to stand in their shadow, to touch their weathered stones, to take in their sheer scale and beauty. Writers, filmmakers, and dreamers use them as symbols of mystery, endurance, and greatness. Engineers and architects still marvel at their construction, trying to learn lessons from the ingenuity of the ancients. The pyramids remind us of something important. Greatness isn't always about technology or wealth. Sometimes it's about vision, belief, and the courage to take on challenges that seem impossible. They remind us that human beings, no matter the era, have always sought to leave a mark on the world, to create something that lasts beyond their lifetime. So, the next time you think of the pyramids, don't just think of them as tombs. Think of them as messages carved into stone, meant not just for the ancient gods, but for us, the future. They whisper across the sands of time, dream bigger, work harder, believe stronger, because what seems impossible today can stand forever tomorrow. And so, after 4,600 years, the Great Pyramid still stands, defying time, weather, and even our understanding of how it was built. It's more than just stones stacked in the desert. It's a message from the past, reminding us what human imagination and determination can achieve. The workers who carved, dragged, and placed each block may be gone, but their legacy still reaches across the centuries. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Were the pyramids built exactly as history tells us, or do they still hide secrets waiting to be uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story of our incredible human history. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the mysteries of our world.